Cleveland podcast. All things Cleveland sports with your host, John Suchan.
And good evening and welcome to a late night edition of the Johnny Cleveland podcast. How is everybody on this great, glorious Saturday night? If you're watching us, we are live coming to you on YouTube, on the X, and on Facebook. Yes, I thought it would be fun to do a late night edition of our wonderful Johnny Cleveland show, part of the Fanatical Elves Network. Glad to have you on board. Maybe you're watching some college football. We've got the late game starting right now. I'm watching the tail end of the LSU Mississippi State game. Right now, they're actually showing highlights of Alabama taking the early lead over Mississippi State. We aren't here to talk about college football. We're here to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Yes, there's a big game coming up tomorrow. Yes, indeed. 11 o'clock. No, at 1 o'clock. We'll be on at about 11 o'clock, 11:30 to do our pregame show with the Fanatical Elves. We'll have our Any Given Sunday pregame show. We'll have Steve Gill joining us and hopefully a few of our other colleagues on that show. So make sure you tune in, join us. Again, we are just thoroughly happy that you guys are tuning in to our podcasting on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on TuneIn, any of those main platforms. Just tune into us, follow, subscribe, and you won't miss a beat. Right? You like the music in the background? I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. I can hear it through my headphones, but so the Brownies, yes, they have a big game tomorrow. Week 4, we are playing the Ratbirds. That's right, the Baltimore Ravens. I refer to them more like the Ratbirds because that's what they are. They're a bunch of damn Ratbirds, and we don't like them at all. The city, the town Art Modell stole the Browns and took them to Baltimore back in 1995, and I will never forgive Art Modell or Baltimore or those damn Ratbirds for doing that. It's a big game tomorrow for lots of other reasons. The Brownies have a lot, going into this game. They have most of their guys are there. They're ready to play a great game. Not a lot of injuries, except it's like it's only been in the last 48 hours that this has kind of gained some momentum. Deshaun Watson. Yes, that Deshaun Watson, the Browns quarterback, has some type of shoulder situation. And earlier in the week, it really wasn't talked about very much. But in the last couple of days, especially today now, he's listed as questionable. And if you follow anything on social media, you will find that there is a plethora of variety of opinions on what's going to happen tomorrow. I believe the kid's going to play tomorrow. I think this is a bunch of smoke screens and whatnot. People are trying to throw that out there maybe to give, Baltimore the sense of what to prepare for. Obviously, it would be a lot easier if they did not have Deshaun Watson, but he'll play tomorrow. And I would be shocked if he sits. We'll talk more about that on our pregame show. But that, he hurt his shoulder. I'm not quite sure which play it was in the first part of that game. I think he kind of tweaked it. Obviously, as Browns fans, we know too much about shoulder injuries. A1 Baker Mayfield ruined pretty much his career when he decided to tackle the Houston Texan player several seasons ago and basically ruined that rest of that season. We'll see. We will see. It's not a great sign when a quarterback, any quarterback, suffers some sort of shoulder injury, because you need your shoulder to throw the damn ball. And for us Browns fans, it's got all of us a little nervous. I'm predicting that he's going to play tomorrow, but again, based on all of our things that we know about shoulder injuries and what we've seen in the past, it is a little bit nerve-wracking. Baltimore is a dirty, dirty team. They stink. They are a bunch of, guys that just want to get out there and hurt you. I don't think their coach, I don't think their team has much respect for the Brownies, even though the Browns did beat them and have beaten them many more times in recent history. Baltimore does hold a pretty significant season or series lead on the Browns since Browns returned back in 1999 and had to play against what their former team was, which is just a crime that still is something that we, talk about. Some people don't like that. Some younger folks, other fans that aren't from here, fans and beat writers and national pundits who maybe even write about the Browns that don't live here in Cleveland and don't live here in Ohio. They don't really understand. They might live some other part of the country and they might be rooting on the Browns, but they don't really understand what the Brown fan base that was here truly went through. Truly. Now, I was in Kansas those years, so I was actually out of the state at the time that the Browns were, taken from us by Baltimore and Art Modell. And the real shame. The fact is, I was born and raised here in Ohio, and I think unless you were really from this area, born and raised, grew up a diehard, or maybe you lived out of state and you had family that was both from Ohio, or maybe you had a parent that was from Ohio. I can understand that, and the significance of you probably get that and being a Browns fan. Anyway, just a shame. So we have a lot of history, and so I think that's why this game coming up tomorrow, it's one that I always, it's significant. This game, the games against Pittsburgh, those are what the Browns rivals are. Now, Cincinnati, that's the state of Ohio, Battle of Ohio thing. The only reason it's got in that is because of Joe Schmo. I mean, if it weren't for Joe Burrow being there, we wouldn't be talking about Cincinnati very much. Yes, Cincinnati made it to the Super Bowl. Yes. We all know that. Did they win the Super Bowl? No. Are they going to go back to the Super Bowl? No. They got kind of lucky that year. Not going to happen. Now, as Browns, we got to get to the Super Bowl, and we got to do it pretty quick. So there's a lot to be ready for tomorrow. We're going to talk about it in our pregame, but as a loyal fan myself, it's just, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm ready to see what the Browns do tomorrow. I think that Browns defense has been so damn solid, right? Jim Schwartz is going to kind of just let them play. And after watching Myles Garrett pretty much toy with both Tennessee and the Bengals a couple weeks before, I can't even fathom what Myles is going to do in this game. I think part of the biggest reason that the Browns defense, and we've talked about this in the Fanatical Elf show with Steve and Elliot, is that the Browns have really, on the defensive side of the ball, have really found an identity early. They have centered around collectively, boosting up one another. I think Jim Schwartz really promotes celebrations and getting excited after big plays and those things. You can see that the Browns players are doing things that we haven't seen as a fan base in God knows how long, right? It's been significant amount of time since you genuinely see these guys jumping up and down, giving high fives, dancing. I mean, it's almost a little bit over the top. But as Browns fans, we're not used to that, and so it's a breath of fresh air, and something that hopefully will continue to be used to it. They could do some really good things tomorrow. I guess this is one of those big games where it's week 4 and we're 2-1. Now the Browns have been 2-1 with Kevin Stefanski, Steady Eddie, in other moments prior to this. But this is an opportunity to go 3 wins before the bye. And then you get to wait and play San Francisco, rest up, and be prepared to go potentially against a Super Bowl opponent in the San Francisco 49ers. Ooh, that'd be a nice preview, right? It'd be pretty cool. So there's a lot going into this game. I think Baltimore has, quite frankly, I don't think they're that good of a team. I think, yes, they got off to a decent start, but have gotten to play the Houston Texans, and I can't even remember who they beat in game 2. They lost to Indianapolis last week in a home game that, quite frankly, they should have won, but they blew it. So, okay, let's pause for a break. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, part of Fans First Sports Network and part of our Fanatical Elves Network. We will be right back, folks. We're going to go pay the bills. Hey, we are back here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network and Fans First Sports Network. Hey, did you check out our TikTok? Yeah, I put out a TikTok earlier this evening. Gave you a little early prediction on the Cleveland Browns versus Baltimore Ravens. Go check that out. I did predict that the Browns are going to win, but maybe you can go check to see if what the final score would be. The over under, I think, is like 40.5, and I think the Browns are 2.5 point favorites to 3 point favorites. So my money is on our Brownies tomorrow, and can't wait to start get ready for that game. Tune in again to the Fanatical Elves Network. We'll have a new episode out right before the game tomorrow for our pregame show. We should have a post-game show as well tomorrow afternoon after the game, so check back with us on that. We've been throwing out great content this last couple weeks. We had the Browns breakdown with our new rising podcaster, Sam Britton, down there in the Texas area. He loves the Brownies, and he had a great show earlier today. We've had other shows this week. Steve Gill with the Dog Pound South. We've got What the Elf Was That with Joel. Joel brought on one of his former college roommates, his former quarterback at the college he used to play for. So tune into that. We've had the Browns Rockin' Show and the Browns Blitz with Rod Bloom. Rod Bloom's, I think, daughter is getting married this weekend. So congratulations to Rod and his family on that. So I wanted to just touch base on one final topic before we let you go. This is more of a personal, it's a personal situation I've been dealt with the I write for Ohio or Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, and I wanted to give you a little story on the Cleveland Browns because this is kind of not necessarily caught me off guard, but as an older fan and Browns fans, you might be listening. And, you've had your own experiences with the Cleveland Browns as a fan. And hopefully most of those experiences have been pretty good. But as an older fan, as I am, and I've watched the Browns since the late 70s, when you start watching the team when you're a kid, you have that, image or that mindset that this team is sort of like superhuman and it's beyond the scope of really understanding. Like there are these football players and they play on this pro football team and it's so ginormous. I can always remember going to the Browns games when I was a younger child and going to the old Municipal Stadium and the first experiences. You might remember those experiences as a kid. You walk in and you've watched games on TV all those years for several years prior, maybe as a younger kid, and then you go to your first game. And I think the first thing, and if you walk in the old Municipal Stadium, was that Municipal Stadium was just so ginormous that when you actually saw where the players played on the football field, the field itself really didn't feel that big. It was almost small. Until you get down on the field and you see the length of it. But when you have a huge stadium surrounding it with 70,000 seats, it gives you a different perspective. It's a little bit like watching, if you go to the Grand Canyon and the football field will look like a little speck at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Okay. So I get, this is, my experiences, and probably maybe some of yours have had the same. So you have this sort of image of what the team is going to be like. And now, as an older guy, we do these podcasts and we're having fun doing those, and we want to provide content that brings you back and entertains you, the listener. And we love that because we love our Browns. We love rooting for this team that we rooted for since we were kids. But one thing happened this week, very disheartening. And if anybody from the Cleveland Browns organization ever decides that they want to tune into the Johnny Cleveland podcast on the Fanatical L's network, I'd love for them to get back with us and let us know what they think. Because as I said, I write for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, a wonderful group. And many of you, some of you who listen maybe have heard of Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders. Let me tell you a little backstory about it. Matt Lodi began the site. Matt Lodi is was a pretty popular sports personality up in the Cleveland area for many years, and he was well respected by the community. He also wrote for Sports Illustrated and did some things. Well, he started this website, this Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, and unfortunately, a couple of years ago, Matt passed away. And if you live in the Cleveland area, you may have heard his backstory and what he went through and his cancer. And I remember watching a story told by Channel 8 WJW. I think John Telich was part of that story. Anyway, that site now has been brought up by Natalie Turk, who was a writer for them and then knew Matt. And Natalie has done an amazing job of running this wonderful media group that they provide high school coverage every week of football games across the area, including, all over Northeast Ohio. I cover some games down here in the Columbus, Ohio area. They cover, we have credentialed at sporting events, including the Columbus Clippers, the Columbus Crew, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Cleveland Guardians. Hello, the Cleveland, former Indians, Guardians now. The Cleveland Cavaliers. So we are well respected in Northeast Ohio, and we were trying to get so we would be credentialed. I write a lot for this Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders about the Cleveland Browns, and maybe you've read some of my material, and I've been doing this for quite a long time for their media group. And we tried to get the credentials through to the Browns, and the Browns were asking Natalie to do many things to provide information and thorough amount of information. And we thought a week and a half or two, well, actually we saw it before the season started, that everything was good to go and that I would be credentialed and as part of the media show there, and I'd be there in attendance, credentialed and following the Browns and giving updates and providing good coverage back to you, the fans and the listeners, via our writings. Well, unfortunately, the Browns kept pushing things off, and we're not getting back to Natalie, not communicating, and we're ignoring communicating back to us. In the end, about a week ago, she did make contact again, and then they asked her to do a couple other extra things to provide information. And then this week, we were given announcements that we were not credentialed because supposedly, and I will read this from the Browns organization. This is from the Cleveland Browns, telling us why we were not credentialed. And in their email back to us, they say, per our team policy, which I'm assuming is the Cleveland Browns policy, particularly due to high demand, the Browns do not provide credentials to independently owned and operated media groups, including blogs, podcasts, etc. Now, keeping in mind that this Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders has been credentialed before by the Browns over the years, and they are currently credentialed by the Cleveland Guardians, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Columbus Crew, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Columbus Clippers, just to name a few. So that was their team policy. Now, Natalie Turk is trying to get back to get more information from the Cleveland Browns organization. So we'd like to hear back from the Cleveland Browns themselves. And hopefully, if the Cleveland Browns are listening, they would provide more updates and provide further explanation of why Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders was not credentialed for the upcoming. They did say this is for the upcoming season. The earlier sentence, they had also said that we do not anticipate being able to provide any credentialed access or interviews to Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders for the 2023 season. Very disheartening. You know, as a Browns fan, I will continue to be a supporter of the Cleveland Browns. Love my Browns. But as a lifelong fan, and it's somebody who has seen many things over the years, it is very disheartening that the Browns organization decides that they want to share that, and you know that it's at their discretion. But the struggle here is that the Browns organization, prior to coming out with this statement to our media group, said that, or made my colleague Natalie jump through many extra hoops and if they weren't intending, because we are a independently owned and operated media group, then they should not have required Natalie or our organization to go jump through those extra hoops. And that's really not good business. And hopefully the Browns will correct that and get it fixed. So Browns, if you're listening, we'd love some further explanation for our Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders group, a great group of colleagues, a great group of dedicated workers who cover a lot of sports in Northeast Ohio. So check them out at, I think it's neosi.com. All right, folks, I hope you all have a great night. It's a late night Saturday. We look forward to joining you tomorrow morning again with our pregame show for the Brownies on our Any Given Sunday kickoff show. Tune in for that. Earlier tonight, we had our Browns breakdowns as well with our young friend, Sam Britton down there in Texas. Thanks, Sam, for providing a great show as you always do. All right, folks, take care. Go Browns. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast. See ya. And I got to remember, I always tell you this. You know what I'm going to tell you, right? Yeah, you do. Remember to keep smiling. See ya.